Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone progressively joining us online. I trust that you're all safe, healthy, and at home. Welcome to everybody to this session on ocean-based solutions in the fight against climate change. This is a session held as part of the Race to Zero dialogues on the Ocean Day. So thank you to our organizers, the World Economic Forum, Friends of Ocean Action, the Blue Climate Initiative, and Ocean and Climate Platform. My name is Lorelai Picourt. I'm the Secretary General of the Ocean and Climate Platform, and I am also the co-focal point for ocean and coastal zones under the Marrakesh Partnership. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and I will be your facilitator throughout the session. So if we may start with a very brief on logistics, a quick brief on logistics, so we can get it out of the way and go into the discussion. We hope this session will be very interactive, so we invite you all to go to Slido and use the platform to ask your question. You can see on the screen now, you can either go directly to the website and enter the hashtag Race2Zero or scan the QR code. And then we will come back to the questions during the Q&A session after the panel discussion. So now, let's get down to business. We are at a crucial time now with the upcoming 5th year anniversary of the Paris Agreement that will take place in December this year. And it is more important than ever to reaffirm our ambition to tackle the climate crisis and to together embark on a race to zero emissions. As you may have heard in the opening session of this Ocean Dialogue this morning, the high-level champions for global climate action are convening the Race to Zero dialogues over 2 weeks to reflect on the progress that has been made in terms of mitigation and adaptation solutions. These discussions overall, they will serve as critical input to the UNFCCC climate dialogues that will take place from 23 of November to the 4th of December. With all these discussions and dialogues, what is the point? Well, the goal is to really catalyze actions on climate change to support the Paris Agreement. As you know, the clock is ticking. It's absolutely essential that now all civil society actors continue to join forces and continue to send governments a resounding signal that businesses, NGOs, cities, regions, and investors are united in shifting to a decarbonized economy and thus in meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement. Of course, in this global discussion, we cannot forget that the ocean covers 71% of our planet and is at the crossroads of all challenges facing humanity today, from climate change to biodiversity loss, to the energy transition, to ensuring food security, and of course, as we all know, our global health. The ocean truly is one of the keys to the sustainable future that we must build. So now, to dive into the core of this session, we shall focus on nature-based solutions offered by our global ocean to not only address climate change, but also enhance resilience and ensure a just transition to a sustainable blue economy. We have an outstanding panel here today, of course at a safe distance behind the computers, but still we will have a good discussion, I hope, on the ocean's potential to provide such solutions. So thank you all for being here. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Gillian Llewellyn, who will provide some opening remarks. Gilly, you are the Deputy Oceans Leader at WWF International, and you have dedicated your life's career to marine conservation and especially in coastal zones. It's an absolute honor to have you here with us, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Laurelie. And I'd like to start by explaining how the geological cycle and the carbon cycle show us that oceans and coasts, the layers of sediment they can contain, and the rich web of life they support really are our planet's primary mechanism for storing carbon. Now, this vital function in the race to bend the curve of carbon emissions probably rarely receives the attention it deserves. So with the UN Decade for Ocean Science for Sustainable Development starting in 50 short days, we have a chance really to shine a research spotlight on ocean and coasts as carbon sinks and equip our policymakers with powerful arguments for their restoration and protection. Now, our blue forests and our blue gardens need to be cultivated as part of a oceans, food, climate, virtuous solutions set. And our deltas and our muddy, silty and sandy sediments need to be protected from disturbance and protected from development so that their fundamental role, literally as the sticky paper on which organic carbon is captured and buried, can be optimized. Now, coastal vegetated habitats like mangroves, salt marshes, seagrass beds, these are well known as being blue carbon habitats because of their extremely powerful ability to sequester and store carbon in their roots and in their soils in which they grow. They are also examples of nature-based solutions to societal challenges, particularly in their function as green infrastructure or natural infrastructure, by protecting coastlines, by buffering wave energy, by managing and protecting runoff from land. These are all natural infrastructure services that they provide, in addition to their ecological resilience services, such as providing habitats and spawning and nursery areas for fish and marine invertebrates. Mangroves are probably the best documented and well-established natural infrastructure type. And recent studies have documented that mangroves provide $56 billion worth of coastal protection function annually. If we lost our mangroves, it's estimated that an extra 15 million people would be subject to flooding every year. Now, the bad news is that over the last 30 to 50 years, there have been major losses, often abrupt and irreversible losses in our coastal ecosystems. This includes losses in our coastal vegetated ecosystems. This includes losses of coral reefs. This includes losses of oyster reefs. And our deltas literally are sinking and shrinking because they're being starved of sediment due to sand mining upstream and water diversions upstream. This is creating a perfect storm. We are losing these habitats. We're losing their natural ecological and physical resilience functions. We're losing their natural infrastructure functions, and we are losing their ability and potential as carbon sinks. The good news is that international finance institutions, development thought leaders, ecologists, and engineers all recognize the opportunity of building with nature, of harnessing a green economic recovery. And by harnessing the power of nature, by building with natural systems like forests, mangroves, and seagrass beds, we can complement grey infrastructure options. And we can deliver infrastructure services at reduced costs and with additional co-benefits. COVID-19 economic and economic stimulus packages and are kind of in the order of trillions being put on the table. And one thing we know for sure is that economic stimulus will result in infrastructure projects. In the rush for relief, we must not lose sight of the opportunity, not just to build back better, but to build with nature as we provide jobs, provide that economic stimulus, as we power the clean energy transformation, and as we enhance climate mitigation, and as we support the restoration and protection of those natural ecosystems on which we depend. So let's use this wave of economic stimulus, not to further erode the resilience of the coasts, but rather to shore up coastal natural infrastructure, to power a green and just economic recovery, and to really harness the absorptive power and capacity of our oceans in the fight against climate change.
Thank you very much, Gilly, for your truly inspiring words. And I know that it's late in Sydney, so thank you for joining us and for reaffirming your ambition. And as you mentioned, Ocean Solutions, they must be founded on sound science to best inform policymakers. And we need to learn how to best harness the power of nature. I think it's a beautiful way of saying it. To best deliver on our ambition for mitigation and adaptation while safeguarding the many resources in the ocean. So thank you so much. Moving on to the next part, as you know, the ocean was in the spotlight last year during COP25 in Madrid, the so-called Blue COP under the Chilean presidency. And the ocean is now rising, not just literally, but also on the international climate agenda, and that's best news. Over the last 5 years, we have made some significant progress in recognizing the role of the ocean in the climate system. First and foremost, and we heard about it this morning from Hans Otto Portner, and the IPCC special report on ocean the cryosphere was published last year, and it addressed for the very first time the crucial role played by marine ecosystems in the overall climate system. And as Vladimir Ryabinin said as well this morning, this was a game changer for the ocean. And at the end of COP25 last year, we also had other good news, is that the ocean made a grand entrance in the final decision of the COP for the first time, where it was requested to the chair of CEPSTA for non-UNFCCC or policy nerds like me. The CEPSTA is the subsidiary body on science and technological advice. So the CEPSTA was asked to convene an ocean and climate dialogue to consider how to strengthen adaptation and mitigation action under the Climate Convention. So this is a true milestone for the ocean and climate community. This dialogue will be held on 2 and 3 December this year, online, obviously. So now we know that the time to raise our ambition is now. And of course, the ocean is an integral part of taking action forward. In that regard, countries, they obviously have a key role to play in ensuring a way forward to appropriately address the ocean and climate nexus under the climate negotiations. But something that we cannot forget is that the race to zero, the race to carbon neutrality, is of great concern to all of us, to all actors of civil society. So now let's dive into the next part of our session. We have an outstanding panel who will be presenting and discussing the innovative work of their respective organizations and truly inspire us to boost ocean solutions. So I believe that you can see online a few speakers have joined us. So welcome to all. We have Maria Claudia Diaz-Granados with Conservation International. We have Chip Cunliffe with AXA XL, and we have Dr. Flower Amzuya with the Zanzibar Seaweed Cluster Initiative. Thank you so much for being here. So we will try to have an interactive dialogue that will be followed by questions. But if that's okay with all of you, I will start first with Maria Claudia. Maria, you are the Blue Carbon Director at Conservation International. And as such, you work on the preservation and restoration of coastal blue carbon ecosystems. Gilly mentioned it as well, the role of mangroves and salt marshes as sequestering and storing blue carbon. Of course, they play a crucial role in mitigating the effects of climate change. I have the privilege of working closely with Conservation International, so I know how busy you are. And I know that with IUCN and IOC UNESCO, you've actually launched the International Blue Carbon Initiative, which has several very concrete projects on the ground all over the world. And in your case, I believe that you work specifically with the teams in Latin America, and you're based in Bogota. So thank you for being here as well at ours. Maria Claudia, can you tell us a little bit more about, why blue carbon is so important, the role of the Blue Carbon Initiative, and what is your take from the field?
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this beautiful and very interesting panel. And I'm thrilled to be here with you all. And as you mentioned, Conservation International with the IUCN and IOC UNESCO launched an international blue carbon initiative almost 10 years ago, or perhaps a little bit more than that, as a global program that works to mitigate climate change through restoration and sustainable use of coastal and marine ecosystems, as Gilly mentioned already. The Blue Carbon Initiative brings together governments, research institute, non-governmental organizations, and communities from the world, and all together works to develop management approaches, financial incentives, and policy mechanisms for ensuring conservation, restoration, and obviously sustainable use of coastal blue carbon ecosystems. It also engaged local, national, and international governments in order to promote policies that support coastal blue carbon conservation and management, and obviously financing, because money is needed to do all these interesting projects. It also supports scientific research into the role of coastal blue carbon ecosystem for climate mitigation, and develop methods for assessing blue carbon stock and emissions. And all around the world, the Blue Carbon Initiative implement projects that demonstrate the feasibility of blue carbon accounting, management, and incentive agreements. And obviously, this is very important for all of us in order to conserve and restore these important ecosystems that are key for fighting climate change and risk. There are two groups that are operating and working right now within the Blue Carbon Initiative. One is the scientific group that provides the foundation, the scientific foundation for the Blue Carbon Initiative by synthesizing current and emerging science on blue carbon, and provide robust scientific basics for coastal conservation management and assessments. The group has developed a coastal blue carbon method for assessing carbon stock and emissions. It's a manual that you can all find on the website. It's very interesting, and many countries are using that manual to evaluate and assess blue carbon stocks in the field. The other group, it's focused on policies and provide framework for policy development that maximizes conservation of carbon in coastal ecosystems and mobilizes the implementation of that field framework, builds an integrated blue carbon community that support policy implementation as well. One recent manual that it is also available in the website is the guideline for countries about including blue carbon into NDCs, which is really interesting, and it's been a key for many countries in order to develop the recent document they have to present right now to complete the Paris Agreement as well. But you asked me why blue carbon is so important, and I think that Dr. Gilly already mentioned a little bit about that. A blue carbon ecosystem provides numerous benefits and services that are essential for communities and biodiversity along all coasts. It is estimated that over 200 million people worldwide live within 10 kilometers of the oceans and mangrove forests. And these people and the communities to which they belong depend on mangroves for food, jobs, cultural identity, and obviously protection from the impact of natural disasters and climate change. Also, research has shown that these ecosystems also play a key role in climate mitigation strategies, as I already mentioned, at local and global scale. So protecting and conserving these ecosystems is essential to prevent the release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. That is one of the key services that these ecosystems provide, reducing the acceleration of climate change and its impact, but also they support water quality, healthy fisheries that are related with food security, and coastal protection against floods and storm, etc. Despite all these benefits, as Dr. Gilles also mentioned already, blue carbon ecosystems are some of the most threatened ecosystems on Earth. It's estimated that we have lost more than 60% of the mangrove worldwide. We also have lost almost 35% of tidal marshes and almost 30% of seagrasses, meadows everywhere. And that is why initiatives such as the Blue Carbon Initiative and the IPBC, which is the International Blue Carbon Partnership, just a government or alliance, and the Global Mangrove Alliance as well, are essential to meet globally these conservation and restoration goals, and to work all together towards achieving that goals, which is our role here in the world.
Thank you so much, Claudia, for your Maria Claudia, sorry, for your very clear explanation and stressing the importance of these critical ecosystems. As you mentioned, we need to push for the science to policy approach in all our endeavors. So thank you for paving the way in that sense. And of course, blue carbon in NDCs is a true achievement of that effort. So thank you so much. So now I will turn to our next panelist, who is also working towards building resilience and mitigating the impacts of climate change on the ground, Dr. Flower Amzuya. Thank you for joining us today. You are the founder and chairperson of the Zanzibar Seaweed Cluster Initiative. And for over 20 years, you have been promoting seaweed farming in Tanzania by studying climate change and modifying farming methods. So that sounds very, very fascinating. So could you please, Flower, tell us a bit more about your initiative and how the development of farming technologies actually boosts resilience?
Thank you very much. In my country, we farm two types of seaweed. One is higher valued seaweed, and its price is double that of the other one. So we have that in mind when we are speaking. I started the Zanzibar Seaweed Cluster Initiative in 2006, an initiative that works to link farmers to government, to research, and other stakeholders. And they have been doing that for over 10 years. And within the Zanzibar Seaweed Cluster Initiative, I've been developing technologies for farming seaweed, as we heard, and then for adding value. And this I've worked for it for over 10 years now. So in farming, we're talking about farming seaweed in the deeper waters compared to shallow water areas where it is farmed now. In the deeper water areas, conditions are more stable, they're more optimal. And then, so I started to develop technologies, a number of them, maybe 4 or 5 of them, but they were not as optimal. Now I have, now the latest is the tubular net technology, which I started researching in 2014. Now, but why would I develop these technologies for farming and value addition? Well, it is because of the increase in the surface seawater temperature. Water temperatures, especially in the shallow water areas where seaweeds are farmed, is increasing over the years. Obviously, the impact of climate change. And therefore, we see that the farmers cannot farm the higher value seaweed to get the double the price, the seaweed that is susceptible to high temperatures. And we have seen recently also that in the hot season, even the lower value seaweed, which is hardy, is also being affected. So what's the result of this? It means that some of the farmers have stopped farming and some are farming seasonally. So by developing the farming technologies in deeper waters, it means that the farmers can get a higher value seaweed, so they can farm the higher value seaweed, so they get a product of high quality, and they get high prices out of the higher quality product. And then also in the deep waters, there's high production because the seaweed grows faster and the biomass is higher. So, and when we are training about the deep water farming methods and other technologies, we are actually training the women to work with men and the men to work with the women. And mind you, this is not the case in the shallow water areas, because in the shallow water areas, everyone has his or her own farms. But working together in the deep waters, that's something we train them. The technology of adding value to the lower valued seaweed means that the farmers can make seaweed products, and they sell at higher prices. For example, a jar of seaweed jam sells at $1, a bar of soap is $1, a kilo of seaweed powder for $4, compared with only 25 cents of $1 for raw and processed seaweed. So if they are working on this, we have farmers who can have higher quality product, they can get high prices, they can get higher production, and they work together in families or groups to help each other. And they can make products and sell at higher prices. It means that these people will continue to work in the seaweed industry. They will not quit. So despite the impact of climate change that is hitting them all the time, these people will keep on working in the seaweed industry because of the technologies that we developed. They become very resilient and they continue with their activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flower. This is truly, truly inspiring to show this concrete example of how you not only build resilience, but also provide opportunities and vital services for local communities, such as job growth and food. And we will definitely get back to that in a little while. But we have heard it a lot since the beginning of this session, but money is important and we need to get the money flowing. So obviously, another fundamental aspect of scaling up action is to incentivize investments into nature-based solutions and ensure the mobilization of the finance and private sectors in that regard. So now let me turn to our third speaker, Chip Cunliffe. It's great to see you again, Chip. You are the Director for Sustainable Development at AXA XL. Among others, you two are very busy, but you are responsible for AXA's Ocean Risk Initiative, which aims at catalyzing product innovation and a broader insurance industry response to ocean risk. In particular, AXA has launched the Ocean Risk and Resilience Alliance, ORA, which is a multi-sectoral collaboration from the Global South, designed to drive $500 million into groundbreaking finance products by 2030. So that's pretty ambitious. Well done. Chip, can you tell us a bit more about your work, how ORA is designed to address the barriers to investing in nature-based solutions for coastal protection? Thank you, Chip.
Thanks, Lorelei. Yeah, look, thank you very much for having me as well, and great to be a part of this panel. I think it's lots of crossovers with what our fellow panelists have already said. So, look, I mean, we know that nature-based solutions are a critical part of disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation. I know that Julie sort of talked about the cost effectiveness of them, the fact that they have that significant environmental, social, and economic benefits. I think that what we do need to, however, do is to recognise how ecosystems are accounted for. And I know that Maria Claudia talked about that as well. So what are they worth? We need to put a dollar value on them, because ultimately we still know that they're often overlooked or underappreciated in policy decisions within the investments side, and also risk management frameworks. So the side that I come from in risk and investment is critical. I suppose we all know that we need to drive investment into this space. I was listening to the Paris Peace Forum this morning, and they were just saying that 140 to 350 billion dollars a year needs to be driven into adaptation by 2030, and I think nature-based solutions is very much at a part of that. But we also know that there are various barriers to putting that money in that space, and I think part of that is about the nature of the investments that require that productive return. We also know that there's a very short pipeline of investable projects that investors could actually put sort of money into. And of course, it's not just we're not just looking at $1 or $2 million here and there. We're looking at the need to drive hundreds of billions of dollars into the space. One of the other barriers, I think, is probably the fact that there's a lack of data to quantify the risks to the investments themselves. And so, ORA is very much about looking to do that, and I'll give you a couple of examples in a second. But the other two barriers are about sort of creating that enabling policy environment, and finally, is really about developing the timescale, or ensuring that the timescale required for that return on investment is good for the investor themselves. So, ORA has basically was launched in 2019 at the UN to, as you say, to drive $500 million into coastal natural capital by 2030. It's very much a multi-sectoral approach. So it's not just the insurance and wider finance industry. It's working alongside governments, the NGO sector, and of course, all based on science. So some of the examples that we are working on at the moment is how we're able to enable the deployment of coral reef insurance. So we have one example currently in Mexico, but of course we need to scale all these different things. How we're able to integrate healthy ecosystems into risk models. So some work that we're doing on developing a coastal risk index. We're working on micro insurance for small scale fishes in the Philippines. Really, I suppose in that space, in that sense, ensuring that that there is a sustainable fishing fleet of small-scale fishers in the Philippines themselves. We're also looking at illegal, unregulated IUU fishing, and really driving a proactive approach to minimizing the insurance industry's link to that. And of course, there's stuff about mangrove insurance as well. So there's lots of things going on, but it's really about how we identify those projects and products that we can scale very quickly.
Thank you very much, Chip. It's really wonderful to see the growing commitment of the private sector. And here, I believe we're really we're at the heart of what the Race to Zero campaign is trying to achieve, to mobilize everyone from a multilateral approach, but also collectively. It's truly interesting. And of course, I couldn't agree more that we need to really stress the importance of investing into adaptation solutions. Now it's critical. As we've mentioned, public-private collaborations, they're blooming all over the place, and everyone is very much dedicated to implementing nature-based solutions, better protecting and sustainably managing marine ecosystems. There are some great alliances that are forming to do this. So I will actually turn back to Maria Claudia for this, because so I've heard that Apple has actually partnered with Conservation International to help you develop a new approach to valuing the full carbon potential of blue carbon ecosystems. So could you please explain us how this model works and how it can be scaled up? As Chip was saying, this is the key here. We need to scale up action. So how do we do this? Please, Maria Claudia, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much again. And yes, it has been a very interesting alliance. We have CI with Apple that helped us move forward with a very nice project CI Colombia developed together with, in partnership basically with the national authorities and National Marine and Research Institute, a couple of national NGOs and local communities. And the project is based or is focused on mangrove conservation and restoration. It's called Vida Manglar, in Spanish means life mangroves. So everyone is looking to conserve these mangrove forests using and pioneer new methodologies to measure greenhouse gas emissions from these forests. And Apple got in love of that project, I have to say, because there are approximately 12,000 inhabitants living in and around those mangroves. And those communities live in extreme poverty. And they make, as Flower was also mentioning, they use directly natural resources from within the mangroves. That forest is also home to 5 species of mangroves that provide habitat to critically endangered fauna, such as manatees, otters, caiman needle crocodiles, turtles, that are not only important for touristic activities, but also are key for local communities' well-being as well. So the project fully accounts for the carbon value in this ecosystem, not just in the trees, but also in the soil, which is one of the innovations that we are doing, at least in Colombia, and maximize the financial remuneration available to conserve these areas. This obviously requires a national and site-scale feasibility assessment, good data. As Chip was saying, we need to have data and we need to value that information as well. It also includes stakeholder engagement, baseline development, and obviously a project development and implementation that includes activities in the field to conserve and restore these mangroves, and also to promote sustainable development around the forest. And everything, and Apple came to this project to try to generate revenues from blue carbon boutique credits. We sell boutique because it's a very small project with a lot of information, with a very good partnership included. And the idea is selling those credits to provide long-term financial sustainability for all these activities. So the project right now, and thanks to the to Apple investment, is applying for blue carbon credits through verified carbon standard by Vera, BCS, and an additional certification under climate, community, and biodiversity. We are right now ready to expand this first phase of the project. The project is a multiple scale in a place called Golfo de Morrosquillo in the Colombian Caribbean. And we are ready to expand that project. And another benefit from that project is the improvement of local communities and new livelihoods opportunities and options that are expected to increase health and wealth of those living in and around the project. I have to say that conserving and restoring these carbon ecosystems, as I mentioned before, it's a no regret solution, but we have to be very innovative in order to find financial sustainability to do so. Selling blue carbon credit is one option. I have to say it's not the best one, it's not the unique, but it's one way of guaranteeing long-term investment for those projects and provide a unique opportunity to address, obviously, carbon emissions. And as we were mentioned before, that helps mitigating the impacts of climate change, but also it helps adapting people or trying to create more resilient communities for these changes that we are living right now in the world. So this project, I have to say, it's the first blue carbon project that uses that methodology, and that will unlock the mechanism for carbon crediting or blue carbon crediting, which are globally scalable and can cause a significant transformation in ocean and coastal protection if we do that, and if we show that it's effective, efficient, and it's financial sustainable.
Thank you very much, Maria Claudia, for this very detailed and rich answer. I'm sure that we will have a lot of questions going forward. And as a reminder, if you want to ask your questions, you can go on the Slido website and enter the hashtag Race2Zero. And then maybe we'll hear more from Maria Claudia from this. But thank you, because it's really clear now protecting blue carbon ecosystems and the vital services that they provide is detrimental to address climate change and the whole climate crisis, but it's also fundamental for local communities. And you have stressed it in your intervention just now. And you know, nature-based solutions, they hold obviously some great potential to protect marine ecosystems and mitigate climate change. But let's not forget that in many cases, if not in most cases, they also effectively address societal challenges by ensuring human well-being and providing a number of socioeconomic benefits. And here we're not only in the ocean and climate nexus, but ocean and climate, biodiversity, food security, and the whole 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Everything is linked, and we need to emphasize that. Anyhow, I will turn back to Flower now, because I believe that your outstanding work on seaweed farming has actually contributed and benefited local communities in Zanzibar. As a very brief mention, the picture right behind me was taken in Zanzibar, so it's a dreamy place. And thank you so much for all your efforts in protecting those vital ecosystems. So that's great. But now I would like, if you don't mind, Flower, for you to tell us a bit more about how, in your case, the development of innovative farming technologies has impacted local communities, and most specifically on marginalized women. Thank you very much.
Okay, the technology that we developed to farm in the deep water areas, we have two villages where this tubular nets technology is being used, and in each case we have about 15 women working. In each group they are working with 3 to 4 men who help them, because the technology needs diving to anchor the tubular nets, and the women have to work with the men so they can help them. But these women actually have managed to cultivate the higher valued seaweed, and because of that they earn more, and they are also increasing the production, because before we developed the technology, the women were not harvesting much actually of this higher valued seaweed. Most of them had just decided to farm the lower valued one, but now they can produce this higher valued seaweed. And actually, apart from the higher valued seaweed, also when they anchor the nets in the ocean, they also catch fish. So because fish come to hide under the nets, so they have the seaweed, and then they have the fish. So this actually has improved the people, and they are very happy about using this technology, because they can plant the higher value seaweed. And also we see that actually, if you look at for example, the value adding process, the women who are doing that actually have they are, you talk to them, they are different from those who are not doing the deep water farming or adding value to the seaweed selling products. They have more money, and they do a lot of more things, like taking care of the families, building houses, buying motorbikes, things like that. So for these technologies, actually the women have improved their lives, and they are really happy about using these technologies.
Thank you very much, Flower. This is really inspiring, and we must not forget that, of course, the impacts of climate change will be worsened for the most vulnerable communities. So your leadership, your expertise is invaluable in this discussion. Thank you so much. And going back to Chip as well, I believe that Aura's objective is also to focus on protecting the regions and communities that need it the most. So for this, of course, you need to build the foundation for a new marketplace willing to invest in nature-based solutions and coastal natural capital. It is also my understanding that to achieve this objective, the Aura Alliance has launched its Ocean Resilience Innovation Challenge to identify and nurture a pipeline of up to 10 finance and insurance innovations. That challenge runs until 20 November, so it's pretty much tomorrow. So can you tell us a bit more about what it means and how we can engage in this challenge?
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, look, it's not tomorrow, so that's good. You have another week at least. But yeah, no, the innovation challenge is really about driving investment into those coastal ecosystems, as I said before. And I suppose that the key piece is how we're able to provide that return on investment. So one of the criteria is about reducing ocean risk for the most vulnerable. But all entries really, we want to focus on the viability of the idea, the innovativeness, how we can scale the impact, and of course equity alongside that too. But as part of Aura and the work that we're doing, gender and human rights are key pieces to be aware of, and of course we also want to look at protecting biodiversity as well. So we're certainly keen to have proposals from either individual organizations, from consortia, from public and or private sector, local society, NGOs, academia. I mean, we're keen to hear from anybody with some really good and well thought out proposals. The idea is that we will select winners at the end of this calendar year. We will announce them in early 21, and each project will receive, shall I say, support to maximise their potential for impact, scalability, and also investability as well, because of course that is a key part of this. We will provide a tailored mentoring program, and that will be run partly by the Global Resilience Partnership, but we'll be bringing in mentors from the insurance and finance industries and others as well. And that is really focused on communications and leadership support as well, really to try and ensure that those projects are funding ready when we come out of this, about the middle of next year. And ultimately, we are hoping to link those projects to potential investors as well, and partners from across our network. There's a whole lot of information actually on our website, so oceanresilience.org, and the benefits, of course, to the winners are on there. The guidelines for applicants are on there as well. And yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing from those people who might have an idea or two to look at the investment in this space.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So as Chip mentioned, it's not 1 day but 1 week. So please go on the
Yes.
website and get involved. Thank you so much. It's been a very, very rich and very fruitful conversation. I have learned a lot, so I hope that the people watching us are also very interested. We have heard some great examples of nature-based solutions and designed to build resilience, to protect ecosystems and the services they provide to people. And of course, we have addressed ocean risk and how to scale up these solutions. So it's been very stimulating. So now let's give a chance to the great public listening to us to ask their questions to our distinguished panelists. We have received a few comments. First of all, I want to say that most comments say thank you very much. It's been very inspiring. It's been great. So congratulations to all of our speakers and thank you again for being here. To respect the timing that we have today, I won't be able to ask all the questions, but I will start with a few. So first of all, how realistic is it to try to develop carbon credits for smaller scale seaweed farming, such as that happening in Zanzibar, and what is needed to make it feasible? So maybe Maria Claudia, you can take the first question. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's good. It's feasible, of course. You need to look at the project itself and see what is the project like. I never worked with seaweeds in the past, so I'm not sure how the project should be framed or developed, but I think having the example from mangroves in other places, I think it's really interesting to try to apply these kind of processes in order to get financial sustainability, knowing that in some cases is not the best strategy. In other is not the only one, but if you have a small project and you can combine different financial strategies, that could be very interesting. But I think that perhaps Flower has something else to say because she's the one that leads all these seaweed processes.
Yes, Flower, please, do you have some comments to add?
Yeah, in my case, I think that a seaweed farm can really be used for this purpose. We have heard how seaweeds are able to sink the carbon so much, and it just needs the intervention of the government. The government can make programs, can help to come out with programs that will be used by private people or by just citizens or seaweed farmers to ask for this carbon system. So I think that if you look at our governments, most of them have not started doing this, but it is very potential. And I think that the governments should be part of this, and it is quite possible to have this system.
Thank you very much. Chip, do you want to add something, or maybe we move on to the next question?
Yeah, well, only sort of, I mean, not necessarily about seaweed, but just in the blue carbon piece. I mean, I know that CI is very much a leader in this space. We're also working with the Nature Conservancy on something similar, which looks at sort of blue carbons from mangroves, but also developing a resilience credit as well. So utilizing the protective benefits of mangroves and providing or giving the protective benefits of those mangroves a value as well. And so, you know, I think there's some really interesting pieces of work going on in this sort of blue carbon space. I think it's very much a nascent area of work, but you know, somewhere I think that as has been mentioned, you know, I think that can scale, and it probably needs to scale pretty rapidly. I think we need to scale it rapidly, but I think we need to do it in the right way. I mean, that's critical, of course.
Great, thank you very much. And I like that next question because it touches upon the UNFCCC processes. So is actually asked to all the speakers, and how do we translate some of the things that you have mentioned into concrete ocean-specific commitments into the NDCs? So to give maybe a little bit of background for, again, non-policy nerds, the NDCs are the nationally determined contributions, so they are the cornerstone of the Paris Agreement, the commitments that each country has to make to achieve the ambitions of the Paris Agreement, and in terms of mitigation, because the mitigation objectives will be quantified and will be evaluated every 5 years. So now we're reaching to a new cycle from 2015, and many countries have committed to including the ocean or ocean-related measures into their NDCs. In that respect, if since that question came up, I would encourage everyone to go to the Ocean, Because the Ocean Initiative website. They published last year an excellent report on the different ocean measures that can be included into NDCs for mitigation, as well as for adaptation and for hybrid solutions. So yeah, so maybe, and of course, ocean solutions in NDCs is one of the critical ways that we can push the ocean climate nexus. So who wants to take the lead for that question? Maria Claudia, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to throw you under the bus here as well, because you mentioned the NDCs in the discussion before, and of course, blue carbon is one of the only ecosystems that's truly recognized. So
I did mention that, because as part of what we are doing within CI is trying to promote the integration or the inclusion of blue carbon ecosystems into NDCs in each of the countries, and I have to say that sometimes it's not that easy, as you may understand or know that some countries, they don't have specific data or very good data related on mangroves. And of course, there is little about seagrasses or salt marshes. So it's very difficult to commit as a political level to do something related with those ecosystems. Nevertheless, we think that it's very important at least to have the will to do something towards conserving and restoring those ecosystems, because they are acting and they are having a very important role on mitigation and adaptations activities related, of course, with climate change impacts. And that is why I strongly recommend, if you want to read that manual, that guidelines on how to include blue carbon ecosystems into NDCs, because it's a very, very easy and comprehensive document that helps government to include in different stages. We don't need to, governments don't need to have very strong data sets in order to do so. They can also add the concept there and then open the space to work towards gathering more information in the future, but it's also a political will or a political commitment to do something, which is so important to fight against climate change. So I strongly believe that it's key right now for governments from different countries to commit including blue carbon ecosystems into their national commitments, national goals to fight against climate change.
Thank you very much, Maria Claudia, for this very helpful answer. And of course, if the people watching us are interested in further discussing how to include ocean-related measures into NDCs, I strongly invite you to follow the next session on innovation, because it will address also renewable energies and shipping, which are key elements to be included in the NDCs. I'm going to take one last question from the floor, and then we're going to have to move on, unfortunately. So nature-based solutions were defined by different players, UNEP, IUCN, companies, etc., but depending on their interests. So the question is whether we should be careful about the misuse of nature-based solutions as a concept. Maybe Flower, do you want to jump in here?
Yes, I agree. It is true. We have to be careful, because sometimes we know that nature-based solutions, that it depends really on nature. We have to conserve the nature, because if we don't conserve the nature, it means that even the solutions that we are hoping to use or we are using will not work if the nature is destroyed. So we need to be careful. We need to conserve the nature. We need to be careful about using the nature and use the natural resources, use the nature in a sustainable way, making sure that it is continuous, that we will not destroy, and then we destroy even our own solutions because they will not work anymore. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Maybe Chip, do you want to say a final word to close this Q&A session?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say a final word that sort of links to maybe the penultimate question, which is, how do we employ this for the greater good and benefit of indigenous communities? And I think that's, it's absolutely critical that, when we're working on this in this space, that we do so at the local level. And so, of course, partly by working with, across the public-private partnership, where you are able to work with the finance sector, but also working with NGOs like CI on the ground, and who know the local the local environment and the people who are likely to be benefiting from this. And of course, it needs to be of benefit to those individuals, and it needs to go to that individual level. So I think it's a really critical piece, and I do think nature-based solutions it is right that we are focusing on that and looking at that as potential solutions in terms of mitigation and adaptation, but we need to do that at the local level.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to our three wonderful speakers for committing to this session, for sharing your expertise, your knowledge, and your ambition. Thank you so much. So big round of virtual applause for you all. Unfortunately, we have to move on to the next part of our session. I would have enjoyed further discussing with you, but I'm sure that our great public has very much enjoyed this, and thank you for all your questions. And now we have to move on to the next part of this session, which will be very interactive as well and very exciting. So I can now welcome 4 new speakers who have joined on screen. I hope so. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here with us today, of course. And the objective of this next part is to showcase some concrete leadership through action. So we have 4 incredible speakers who will have each a few minutes to take us on a deep dive of their inspiring work and showcase what innovation looks like. So let's not waste any time, because that sounds very interesting. And let's bring on our first ocean leader, Monsieur Romain Troublé. Romain, you are the CEO of the Tara Ocean Foundation. You are also the president of the Ocean and Climate Platform, so I have the privilege of working with you on a regular basis. And I believe that you are actually talking to us live from the Tara vessel, making us very jealous that you're at sea and that we're stuck at home. So thank you so much for taking the time, for being here. And I can't wait to hear some of the groundbreaking work that the Tara Ocean Foundation is doing, especially on the biological carbon pump. So please, Romain, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Very nice panels and very nice discussion so far, and I learned a lot today, so I'm very happy to be on board today. So yeah, it's indeed, I speak to you from the Tara vessel. We are off the coast of France to preparing one of the next 2-year project we are launching in 1 month from now, straight. Maybe I will share some my screen with some images, not slides, but images. If you can see my screen now. You see my screen? Yeah. So I'm managing the Tara Ocean Foundation, and we are on this boat now as I speak now, and it's really like a public-private partnership we are at with this project, with these actions. It's public science from all over the world involved in the project we run, and it's funded by private partners, private donors, people, you and me, to make sure that this boat keeps sailing and keep doing research on the ocean. So we are really well upstream of the talks that we have before on the land, on the coast. We really care about the global environment, whether it is in the Arctic, on the coral reef around the world, or at sea all over the place, most of the time in the high seas, but also on the coastal areas, we just talked about a lot with the blue carbon economy. recently 20 years ago, we realized that the chlorophyll, the carbon capture from the planet was both as important on land and on the ocean. You can see here all the green areas in the ocean that really shows these primary productions, and also the huge amount of carbon that is captured from the atmosphere to the ocean and then to the bottom of the ocean in sediments. And if you look carefully about this closer to France, where we are now with Star, you really see this kind of blooming stuff from primary productive ocean producing a lot of carbon matter or primary production, but also storing a lot of CO2 and making a lot of oxygen. All these ecosystem services we talked about a bit today. So with Tara, we are in an endeavor to discover this world, to discover these smaller microalgae you can see here, coccolithophores, that when you really deep forward, you look at where we find them, and we really find them like in Dover, the cliffs of Dover. They're really made of 100% nearly. This limestone has been done by this kind of algae, sedimenting from the atmosphere, from CO2 in the atmosphere, going down into the bottom of the ocean. So how this is working, how this carbon pump is using these microbiomes, these crazy microscopic organisms that work together in the ocean, viruses, bacteria, microcellular, unicellular algae, seaweed if you want, but very small ones, that are making a lot of such carbon capturation in the ocean globally. And of course, as they capture CO2, they also produce oxygen a lot. And every time, half of the oxygen we have on the planet has been produced by these kind of ecosystems. So what are they? How are they working? How this microscopic world is behaving in the ocean, where you will look in the Antarctic, in the Arctic, how we can understand all this microscopic life, its sensibility to climate change, to pollution. Will these ecosystem services will remain, or will be enhanced or diminished in the future? In which area? How can we understand better the ocean as a dynamic, in fact, place? How can we understand the carbon pump of this ocean? So with Tara, we since 10 years now, we crisscross the planet to sample something like 100,000 samples of these microscopic organisms, and we measure the carbon pump, the sinking, the drawdown of carbon every day. We sail in the ocean. The drawdown of carbon we can see on the planet, and you can really see differences, and so you can really see different patterns. And of course, the tides, the streams, the currents are having a lot of impact. But so this leads us to a way to think that in the future we may not want to protect the ocean because there is a border, but because there is an oceanographic stream, currents that are key to the rest of the ecosystem that we really need to protect in these areas, to make MPAs in these areas, because they have a huge impact on the rest of the food chain, on the rest of the ecosystem that are storing CO2 or elsewhere in the ocean. So we try to understand how this is working. We use genomics, all the last technologies we have in hand today to study the planet and to study the ecology of it, to really understand the biology of what's living in the ocean, because this is really the key partner, the key player in this carbon drawdown from the atmosphere to the bottom of the ocean. And really the idea is to understand how in the future we can say, okay, this is a key area, choke points in the ocean that we really need to care about and to protect all year long, or maybe 6 months per year, because this is the key processes are happening there, and they are very important for the huge carbon sink processes we can find in the ocean as well. So yeah, back to the forest, but for the forest of the ocean. Thank you very much for your attention. I think it's all I wanted to say today.
Thank you so much, Romain. What wonderful images, what wonderful leadership. You're definitely leading a true scientific revolution for our ocean, our climate, and well, basically humanity as a whole. So what a great kickstart to our lightning round of speakers. So thank you very much, Romain. And bye-bye from the sea.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now thank you, Romain. Let me turn to Dr. Jennifer Smith from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Jennifer, I believe it's extremely early for you now, so thank you for your commitment as well. Your lab actually focuses on understanding how humans actually impact marine ecosystems in different environments. You must be extremely busy. So please, Jennifer, tell us more about how you're developing strategies to protect these critical ecosystems for the future generations. So Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today and share some of the exciting new solutions that are coming out of the ocean to help fight climate change. As you mentioned, the majority of my scientific career, I've spent my life essentially studying how humans impact marine ecosystems around the world, whether it be in temperate or tropical ecosystems. And I can tell you that the one thing that they all share in common is that they're all being incredibly heavily impacted by climate change, whether it be sea level warming, whether it be sea level rise, whether it be ocean acidification. And we know that all of these impacts are being caused by the increase in greenhouse gas emissions that are happening around the planet. And while we all know about carbon dioxide being, the most abundant greenhouse gas, there are other greenhouse gases that have potentially a greater potential to help rapidly reverse some climate change impacts. And so methane is the second most abundant greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. And methane actually is about 30 times more potent in terms of its warming potential than CO2. And one of the really exciting things about thinking about managing methane is that it has a much shorter lifespan in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. So methane is in the atmosphere for 10 to 12 years, as opposed to hundreds to thousands of years with carbon dioxide. And so this means if we can find solutions for managing methane now, we'll actually see these realized changes in our lifetime, in a decade or two. And so when we think about what are the main sources of methane emissions in the atmosphere, the largest source of anthropogenic methane is actually the livestock industry. And so specifically, livestock, including cattle, sheep, and goats. These are the ruminant animals, the animals that have enteric fermentation, and in the process of their digestion, they actually produce methane as a waste product. And that methane, the majority of that methane that is produced is essentially burped out of their mouth and goes straight into the atmosphere. And so this industry has received a lot of criticism from environmentalists, notably because of the massive impact to greenhouse gas emissions. And there really hasn't been a viable solution for this industry to apply to essentially reduce, mitigate, or even manage methane at any relevant, scalable solution. And so we can fast forward to essentially 2016, where some researchers in Australia were experimenting with different types of applications to the gut microbiota, the bacteria that live in ruminant stomachs, to try to see how we might be able to manage or affect their methane production. And they were focused on a lot of different species of seaweed. Again, another interesting thing about seaweed is that they produce a lot of very interesting chemical compounds, which have a whole variety of different applications, from drug discovery for human use to antibiotics, a whole bunch of other things. But what they found was that one particular species, this red seaweed pictured at the bottom of this slide, Asparagopsis taxiformis, when fed in very small quantities or exposed to the gut microbiota in very small quantities, actually could nearly eliminate methane production. And while these early studies were done in petri dishes, looking at the gut microbiomes isolated from the animals, over the last couple of years, a whole variety of additional studies have taken place across the world, where scientists have actually been able to feed livestock ground up Asparagopsis, and these studies have shown consistent and very strong results, leading to up to 90% reduction in methane emissions in these livestock animals. So why am I, as a marine biologist, talking to you about methane management in livestock? That leads us to, why isn't this application being broadly used around the planet today? And that is because the seaweed is actually very finicky. We've never grown it commercially. We have no blueprint for how to cultivate it. We don't just develop a massive commercial scale operation overnight. And so that's where myself and a whole bunch of other scientists around the world are working to try to identify how to make this a scalable solution. You can imagine if we were able to reduce methane emissions by 90% for the 1.5 billion cattle, let alone a similar number of sheep and goats around the planet, we could have a real impact on greenhouse gas emissions. And so there are many challenges associated with this. This is a new, fairly new solution, but it's one where we think once we can nail down the strategies for growing this, both land-based cultivation as well as an open ocean cultivation settings, this will create new blue economy jobs around the planet that can be scaled to communities all over, both in small rural areas as well as in big, heavily populated parts of the planet. And so we're really excited about this solution. And while this is just one example of a novel solution where the ocean can provide potentially highly impactful greenhouse gas mitigating opportunities, there are, I'm sure, many others. And I would just encourage all the young scientists and entrepreneurs out there to continue searching in the ocean for solutions like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. This is fascinating and reminding us that what happens on land obviously has an impact at sea. So we need to address the interface between the planet, the terrestrial land, and the ocean, of course. Thank you so much. We will definitely be looking at this innovative solution very closely in the future. So thank you. Moving away from the scientific perspective now, let's go back on the ground. This time we're going to Kenya with our next speaker, Gabriela Coco. Karibu, Gabriel. Thank you so much for joining us today. You work at Mikoko Pamoja, or Mangroves Together in Swahili. You lead a community-led mangrove conservation and restoration project. So come here to know more. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to present and give insights on Mikoko Pamoja. That is a community-based mangrove carbon offset scheme in Kenya. Actually, Mikoko Pamoja means mangroves together. So as it has been said, for this, the community believe that when conserving mangroves as an ecosystem, then their functionality is increased. And at the same time, when they work together, for example, in activities such as conservation, planting, and other restoration activities, then they can achieve a lot that will enhance ecosystem functionality as well as community livelihood improvement. So as they carry out the activities, it's also a chant, like they can chant Mikoko Pamoja, Mikoko Pamoja. So it gives them that spirit to be able to carry on with the activities. So Mikoko Pamoja carbon offset scheme was established in 2013. And then it's established in south coastal part of Kenya. And then its objective is to restore and protect carbon through sale of mangrove credits. And it is verified by Plan Vivo for the next 20 years to be able to sell the mangrove credits. So it's conserving mangroves in 117 acreage, in which there is avoided deforestation area of about 107 hectares, and then plantation of 10 hectares and an area of 0.5 hectares that is planted on an annual basis. So in the project, as a carbon offset scheme, it's able to ensure permanence by setting that side which is not cut. So it's ensuring that a mangrove, like carbon that is produced, is captured and stored in the mangrove sinks. And then it's also ensuring reduction of carbon leakage by providing alternative forest that is with the fast growing species such as casuarina, for which communities can cut from, and therefore they reduce pressure on the mangroves. Another aspect of carbon leakage reduction is by giving community members, that is in Gazi and Makongeni villages in south coastal Kenya, efficient wood fuel stoves. So when they're given this, for one, there is a reduction of pressure because they use limited amount of wood fuel. At the same time, there is reduced emissions, and therefore it's also enhancing on the health of the community members. So, and then it's enhancing additionality by ensuring that plantation activities is done so that whatever is there, they're also doing plantation to ensure that there's additional offsetting of carbon. So in return, they are able to get credits. They're able to sell about 2,250 tons of carbon per year, and they get about 12,000 US dollars. So this money, we have got the Association for Coastal Ecosystem, that is a Scottish charity organization that acts as link between our Mikoko Pamoja organization and the voluntary carbon market. So this money, once it comes from the voluntary carbon buyers, then 6% is retained by the access to enhance verification. That is, independent verifiers come from the Plan Vivo and do verification. And then 94% is distributed to the community members. So they sit down and then they decide like, what do they want to do? Some of the money is used to enhance like water projects in the community, to help in building the schools, buy books, as well as help in buying furniture for the dispensary, things that benefit the community as a whole. So in the future, we hope some of the voluntary carbon buyers include DiCaprio Foundation, Edinburgh Napier University. We have got Tropimundo Foundation or program. And then the project has currently been replicated in Vanga, that is about 50 kilometers from Mombasa city. And then we are also looking forward to bundling seagrass ecosystems into the mangrove carbon offsetting scheme. So we hope that with the replication of these, we shall continue enhancing mangrove functionality as well as improving community livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asante Gabriel. It's been really inspiring. And again, you've displayed a concrete example of how to combine carbon markets, the restoration of mangroves, the protection of ecosystems, and obviously benefits to local communities. So thank you so much. So now to go on with our lightning round of speakers, let's continue with our last speaker, Brent Smith. Thank you, Brent, for being here with us. You are the co-founder and executive director of Green Wave, which is an award-winning organization that supports a new generation of ocean farmers. So you have pioneered the development of 3D ocean farming and contributed to rethinking aquaculture. So we definitely want to hear more about this. Over to you, Brent. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Such an honor to be here. I think I'm the lowest on the food chain in terms of education and intelligence, but a real honor to be here. So, I think of this, I'm not really an environmentalist per se. I think of the nexus between climate change, jobs, and community benefit. And so, and that's sort of been the trajectory of my life. I'm from Newfoundland, Canada. I dropped out of high school when I was 14 and became a commercial fisherman and fished the globe. But then 30,000 people were thrown out of work in my area because the cod stocks crashed. And that's when I realized as a fisherman, there weren't going to be any jobs on a dead planet, on a dead ocean, right? And that really set off a trajectory of how can I work and collaborate with the ocean, be a steward on it so that I could make a living in the future. So I went on this search for sustainability and experimented many failures for about 20 years and slowly developed a polyculture system that creates jobs, mitigates climate change, and feeds communities. Here's a picture of the farm. You can imagine sort of, it's underwater. You've got ropes on the side of the farm. I mean, ropes and anchors that go vertically up, and then horizontally across is where we grow our crops, sort of a underwater scaffolding system. And the idea here is because we're vertical, we have a small footprint, but can grow a huge amount of food. I used to have a 100-acre farm. I'm down to 20 and growing more food than before. And its simplicity is its power, because the ocean wants you to be a willow, not an oak. You just want to give with the ocean and then go up in the surface. You don't want to be pens, cages, things like that, because the ocean is unfriendly. And then go to the next slide. Just pop over, yeah. So the idea is to grow as many species in these 20 acres as possible, concentrating on species that don't swim and you don't have to feed. So that's the kelp up in the corner, one of the fastest growing plants in the world. And it's a winter crop, so it's off season for many fishermen and post-hurricane. We have our mussels, which are lean proteins packed full of omega-3s, a lower carbon footprint than lentils, and then oysters and scallops there. Just next slide. And that's the farm from the surface. And there's kind of nothing to see, and that's a good thing, right? Our oceans are these beautiful, pristine places, and we want to keep them that way. Anybody can boat and fish on my farm. Some of the best fishing in our whole area is on the farm because it runs as an ecosystem. And it's really our job as farmers to protect the ocean commons and sort of not be on the front lines of privatization. So the reason I think this is especially important for us is, one, it's regenerative. Just like land-based farming being regenerative, this is regenerative food production. So it's zero inputs, so no water, fresh water, no fertilizer, no feeds, no use of land, making it the most sustainable food on the planet, but also capturing carbon. The oysters filter 50 gallons of water a day, so sequestering nitrogen. We rebuild reefs. So as a fisherman, I'm not depleting the ecosystem, I'm breathing life back into the ocean. Second, it's replicable, right? These are very cheap to build. So if you have 20 acres of boat and $20,000, you can get started and start your own farm. And that's really important. So regular folks like me can get into the industry, and you don't have to be a large corporation, and you can net up to about $100,000, which is a good middle class job here. And this low barrier to entry allows for fast replication, which we need in the climate era. We can spread farms very quickly. Last, it's scalable. And this is key. It can't be boutique. Right? The World Bank says if you farm less than 5% of just US waters, you create 50 million jobs and the protein equivalent of 3 trillion burgers. We need to think big, but we don't need to think 1,000-acre farms. We can think of networks of small and medium scale farms, sort of a reef system, dotting our coastlines, processing hubs, hatcheries, rings of entrepreneurs, and then you replicate those reefs. Now, to scale the farms, we also need to scale markets. And people always ask, like, who's going to use and eat this seaweed? We like seaweed especially because of its diverse uses. Shellfish is easy to sell for us. Seaweed, it's been a learning curve, but it's such a diverse, it's like the soy of the sea, but not evil. So my kelp this year off of my farm went into tobacco barns to be dry during the COVID era. Then it went to food, specifically plant-based burgers and kelp flowers. So we wove it into these other industries. It was turned into bioplastics because we have some amazing bioplastics that use companies that use seaweeds to create straws and plastics. And think how amazing this is, right? We're growing these crops underwater and addresses the plastic issue in the ocean. And then finally for fertilizer and feed. So we collect the carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus in the water with our seaweeds, and then we get them into the soil for land-based regenerative farmers to sequester that. The trouble with blue carbon is if you eat the seaweed, you don't have a drawdown effect. You have an avoided carbon benefit, but you're not sequestering. So we get it into the soil. Now, of course, also, if you look at the farms as a whole, we're able to do food, byproducts, but also these ecosystem services like blue carbon, nitrogen, and fourth, data harvesting, using the farms as data platforms and selling that data. And this diverse kind of species, diverse markets, and diverse communities doing this, I think, is the secret to climate resiliency. Just to close, Greenwave, my organization, is a nonprofit. Its goal is to train 10,000 farmers in the next 10 years. We have a social justice focus of training fishermen directly affected by climate change and indigenous communities. It's hands-on training. We're in 7 states as well as New Zealand. We do hands-on and then digital platforms with toolkits and collaboration. And that's kind of what is exciting for us here, is that we can build an economy for the bottom up that doesn't look like the industrial agricultural economy, right? And doesn't look like industrial aquaculture, but is something better, more beautiful, is not privatizing seed, regular people can do it. And that's exciting for me, because the goal there is how do folks from my community make a living on a living planet? So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Brent. It's been absolutely brilliant. And you're right, a bottom-up approach is absolutely needed. We need to have all actors of society involved. And thank you for your innovation. Thank you for sharing it with us. And it's been truly inspiring. So we cannot stress enough, obviously, the link between the health of our ocean, the human health, food security, green jobs. So thank you very much to this incredible panel of speakers. I don't know about you, but I do feel truly inspired now. I do want to go for a quick dive in the ocean as well, but that will have to wait for a few weeks, months or so. But very unfortunately, we are getting to the end of our session. But before we close, we're gonna have two more speakers with us, very high-level speakers who have agreed to stay on for the closing remarks. So of this session on nature-based solutions that the ocean can offer. So please, can we get the other speakers on? I can see you're on stage, perfect, on the screen. First, let me hand over to Dr. Gemma Harper. Gemma, you are Deputy Director for Marine Policy and Evidence at DEFRA in the UK. Of course, we know that the UK holds the COP26 presidency and has great ambition to further push the ocean and climate nexus. So thank you very much, Gemma, for being here. We know you're extremely busy, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lola. Lovely to see you again. And thank you to our friends at World Economic Forum for hosting this really important event and for inviting me to join you. And thank you also to this incredibly impressive panel of speakers. I'm really heartened and encouraged by your passion and your ambition for placing the ocean and nature-based solutions at the heart of action to tackle climate change. And as you know, as we face the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss, and deal with the impacts of COVID-19, now more than ever, events like these are absolutely vital to bring us together and unite us in common cause. It reminds me that no matter the scale of the challenges ahead, we can only overcome them by working in unison across all sectors of government, industry, and society. We know that the ocean has long been our silent ally, naturally absorbing and locking away carbon from the atmosphere and acting as a buffer to the devastating effects of climate change. But we also know that the ocean can't do this indefinitely. We must be the voice for the ocean. As we know, the ocean supports the livelihoods of 1 in every 10 people, including some of the poorest and most vulnerable on Earth. Sea levels are rising, threatening the homes and communities of over 600 million people living in coastal areas. We know the ocean is becoming warmer, more acidic, in fact, creating an existential threat to coral reefs that millions of people rely on for their coastal protection and for their food, not to speak of the biodiversity that depends on them. Last year, COP25 marked a step change in raising the profile of the ocean within UNFCCC. And we saw the first COP decision specifically on the ocean, and it was a real honor and privilege to be there for that in Madrid. As the incoming COP26 presidency, in partnership with Italy, we are championing the role of nature-based solutions to address the global challenges of climate change and biodiversity loss. Today's event is a real opportunity to reflect on how we will continue to raise the profile of the ocean in strengthening mitigation, adaptation, and resilience in order to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. The COVID-19 pandemic has further highlighted the critical role of nature as we appreciate more than ever the links between the health of society and the health of the natural world. And so I'm extremely grateful to the speakers today for highlighting the collaborative action that we can all take to invest in a greater, greener, and yes, bluer, resilient recovery. We strongly recognize the links between healthy and diverse marine ecosystems, our global capacity for adaptation, and the resilient recovery we need. So the United Kingdom is championing a new target to protect at least 30% of the global ocean by 2030, to be agreed at CBD next year. Along with fellow members of the Global Ocean Alliance, we warmly encourage you to join us. 36% of UK waters are already in MPAs, and our government is currently considering its response to the recent Benyon Review on highly protected marine areas, including the role of blue carbon habitats to improve climate resilience of our seas. And we will continue to invest in, develop, and take action on world-leading science to underpin effective decision-making. As we know, 2021 kicks off the UN Decades of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development and of Ecosystem Restoration, and both are a critical part of this endeavor. We will work with the UN Decades, driving forward science for equitable solutions, capacity building, and meaningful action. We know that nature-based solutions could provide around a third of cost-effective solutions we need right now, yet they attract only 3% of global climate finance. So we're committed to doubling our international climate finance, and we'll be spending a significant part of that uplift on nature. Additionally, using the UK's 500 million Blue Planet Fund, we will work with developing countries to help protect their marine resources from key human-generated threats, including climate change and habitat loss. But we must mobilize resources on all fronts, public and private, if we are to meet our ambition with the action needed. So in conclusion, the pathway to net zero, meeting our sustainable development goals and delivering against an ambitious global biodiversity framework can only be achieved by protecting and conserving nature on a massive scale. 2021 is the start of a decade of ocean opportunity, and I agree with what others have already said today. We must make this a decade of action. I'm inspired by what we've seen and heard today, and I personally am filled with ocean optimism for 2021. I hope you are too. I look forward to working together to maintain this momentum, our ambition, and to driving real-world action on nature-based solutions for the ocean, for climate, for nature, and for us. Thank you, Lorelei.
Thank you so much, Gemma. Your words were extremely inspiring. Thank you for your personal commitment into this. We've been working together for many years, so I know how dedicated you are. Thank you. Thank you also for the leadership of the UK in this endeavor. Obviously, we cannot wait. At least I can't wait to be at COP26 in Glasgow, although it will be in November and cold. But we will be there to defend the ocean climate biodiversity nexus. And in the meantime, yeah, we will definitely follow your words to keep the momentum going for both ocean and climate. Thank you so much. And now let's bring on our final speaker, another true ocean champion, Ambassador Peter Thompson. You are the UN Secretary General Special Envoy for the Ocean. Thank you so much, Ambassador Thompson, for being here with us today. And please, I give you the virtual floor for final remarks.
Thank you for that, Lorelei. If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. Very good. So apologies for joining late. I jumped out of a meeting of the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy, which is nearing the end now. But I did come in at the beginning of Bren's presentation. Apologies to the other presenters. But Bren, all I can say to you, man, is just keep spreading that message. It is so inspiring. I really feel lifted by what you presented there. So greetings to everyone, and thanks for your attention to this really vital subject. You know, in the Pacific Islands, we've long been saying that the ocean change and climate change issues must not be separated in the interests of bureaucratic processes. It's long been obvious to us that their connection is too intricately entwined for them to be dealt with in siloed processes. Thus, it's really good to see that our calls for a more integrated approach are now being heard and acted upon. As you know, the considerable progress that is being made within the UNFCCC's processes for recognition of the ocean's role in regulating the global climate system are now being recognized. And I look forward to participating early next month in the Subster Ocean Climate Dialogue. But in my experience of multilateral processes, vigilance will be required if the ocean's legitimate interest and its hard-won place at the table are to be maintained. Political power resides in terrestrially focused organizations and governments. And until nature is given the vote, that will always be the case. Here, let me note that if nature were to be given the vote, the ocean would indeed prevail. For an estimated 50 to 80% of all life on planet Earth is found under the ocean's surface. I won't preach to the choir here by setting out all of the solutions the ocean offers for both adaptation and mitigation in the face of the climate crisis. Marine ecosystems offer a myriad of nature-based solutions to tackle climate crisis, and you've already covered some of those and most of those, I guess, in your discussions today. So let me just emphasize again that protection of marine ecosystems will allow the ocean to carry on its role as the great regulator of climate. That is one of the chief reasons we pursue SDG 14's implementation so rigorously. For were we to ignore the ocean's role, we would do so at our peril. Should we allow its health to continue its current decline through habitat destruction, rampant pollution, and harmful fisheries policies and practices, the ocean's ability to perform that great role would steadily diminish, and life on planet Earth would suffer in untold ways. So I say again, no healthy planet without a healthy ocean. Anthropogenic greenhouse gases. The expression just rolls off our tongue too easily these days. The poor old dinosaurs didn't have the luxury of extinction foresight. They had no chance to spread the words, look out everyone, there's a massive meteor heading our way. In our case, the best of human science has made it very clear to us, and we cannot unknow this, that anthropogenic greenhouse gases building up since the commencement of the industrial age have been heating our planet, and in the process have been acidifying the ocean, deoxygenating it and warming it, causing such global marine phenomena as rising sea levels and the death of coral. Make no mistake, the ocean climate nexus is at the crux of human security on this planet, and no one who cares for the future of our children and grandchildren should underestimate that fact. We're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Big governments, big economies, big polluters are seeing that light. They've begun to appreciate that their futures are at risk. One by one, they're joining the race to zero. One by one, they're committing to a world of net zero carbon. One by one, they're accepting that the choice of blue-green recovery is the smart choice. The United Nations, and yes, that's all of us, the multilateral global community of we the peoples, is at the forefront of the race to zero. We've stood together for the Paris Climate Agreement and the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. We have, through the UN family of UNFCCC and WMO and IOC, UNESCO, UNEP, FAO, UNDP, and so many other agencies and programs, never resile from the great challenges of the 21st century, chief amongst which is the deterioration of conditions for life on this planet. The UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development gets underway next year, as does the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. Prepare yourselves for the good works ahead and be a part of them. Above all, do not lose faith in the ability of humanity to create a world of net zero carbon by 2050. After all, it was the ingenuity of humankind that in the face of wars and droughts and famines and natural disasters and pandemics always carried us through. From the Stone Age to the Space Age, in the face of crisis, we have shown that our powers of innovation are prodigious. We know that we are facing crisis now as never before in the shape of loss of biodiversity, a deteriorating ocean, and climate change. We know that anthropogenic greenhouse gases are our chief enemy. And we have the opportunity in 2021 to set about a campaign to turn the tide against them. That campaign embraces biodiversity's demise, which we'll tackle at the CBD conference in Kunming, along with the ocean's decline, for which we'll find solutions at the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon. And both of these waves of committed action will then converge on Glasgow in November at the UNFCCC's COP26 to create there the great wave of change required. We now have a real opportunity to establish a regular work stream to address ocean climate issues within the UNFCCC's work. So let us take the current while it serves. Dear colleagues, my basic message to you on this journey is to commit firmly to the case, for it's rational, is just, and it is central to the blue-green future in whose cause we are working. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Thompson. As usual, your passion and optimism is lifting us all, and we are committed in that race to zero, and we will be jointly active towards COP26. As I've mentioned, now we have reached the end of our session on fighting climate change and the ocean as part of the solution. It's been truly inspiring. Thank you all so much. And a big round of virtual applause again to all our wonderful speakers. It's been really, really, really great. Yes, thank you, Peter, indeed. So indeed, let's keep the ambition flowing and enjoy the rest of the Ocean Day as part of the Race to Zero dialogue. Don't miss our next session on innovating for a sustainable ocean, technologies to tackle climate change, as well as the last session on resilient ocean for global recovery, for great remarks and closing remarks and more inspiration. So thank you all so much for this. Have a good day.